Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. NIA calls for suspension of 2024 salary increase for political directorate. Jamaica's newborn mortality rate still not within global targets. And later in sports, champions feature in JPL second leg quarterfinals slated for this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. There is more outcry for corrective measures from the government to the disparity in the salary increases for the political directorate and several groups of public sector workers. The issue was raised on the morning agenda on Power 106 FM. Aisha Nation reports.
The Advocates Network is calling for Prime Minister Andrew Holness to, with immediate effect, table the accountability measures and the job descriptions which he says will govern politicians. Co-chair of the Advocates Network, Professor Rosalie Hamilton, believes that there is currently no justification of the salary increases until that is published. It's why her organization, like other sectors of the society, has called for a rollback of the increases. But Board Director of the National Integrity Action, Professor Trevor Monroe, sees it differently. He says while he understands and sympathizes with Jamaicans about the increases, the only increase which should be suspended is for April 2024.
The suspension of the increase that's due next year should be pending the accountability framework. And secondly, we should implement what was proposed by the committee chaired by Oliver Clark in 2003. And that is to say that the salaries and payments for parliamentarians should not be determined exclusively by them. There should be an independent committee in the way that exists for the judiciary.
But why was this change not done years ago? Professor Monroe says that's because there's not been sufficient and sustained outcry from the public, such as what is happening now. He's hopeful that the current outcry will not be a 9-day wonder.
And to the extent that we sustain this public outcry that this increase is unacceptable, then the administration, both the government and the opposition, will have to look again at that very, very insightful report of 2003, which an independent committee with accountants, with trade union representation, proposed to de-link the MPs and ministers' salaries from the senior civil servant and link it to an overall assessment and the criteria related to the performance of the economy and of the society as a whole. And that will include, of course, a ratio between the Prime Minister's salary and the per capita income of the average Jamaican.
In the meantime, Professor Hamilton is calling for the new constitution to implement measures in which the public can have a greater say in who represents them.
We need to be able to recall our unperforming representatives, and importantly, this must be part of the constitutional reform discussion. So we need to make sure that such mechanisms are in the Constitution.
Aisha Nation, TVJ News.
More work has to be done to bring Jamaica's newborn mortality rate within global targets. That admission from the Ministry of Health, even while explaining that steps are being taken to get Jamaica back on track. Karian Simpson tells us more.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton has acknowledged that Jamaica's maternal health statistics, including newborn mortality rate, are outside the Sustainable Development Goals target. The target is no more than 70 deaths per 100,000 live births by 2030. As such, he says the Health Ministry is ramping up efforts to address this issue. One such intervention is the Start Right initiative. Through this initiative, he says adolescents and vulnerable mothers will be provided with an incentive to participate in antenatal care services. Additionally, the health minister says the ministry is working with other agencies to improve the support of pregnant mothers. Dr. Tufton says the health ministry continues to prioritize the health of adolescents through the establishment of counseling centers and clinical services, among other activities. Dr. Tufton is presently in Geneva, Switzerland at the World Health Organization's Health Assembly to discuss health issues affecting women, children, and adolescents. Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
The 25 men charged in connection with the $160 million fraud at Separate are to return to court on May 31 for conditions to be added to their $400,000 bail. The men made their first appearance at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court this morning. Prior to the extension of their bail, the court was told that the case file is incomplete. The court was informed that a statement and a document from the Communication Forensic Cybercrimes Department of the JCF was outstanding. The accused are also to return on September 25 for the matter to be mentioned. The police say the fraud scheme began in October 2021, days after the company's Newport West warehouse and offices were gutted by fire. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Weeks after Portland residents blocked the main roads from Clear Spring to Zion Hill in eastern Portland, Minister with responsibility for water as well as the National Water Commission, NWC, have outlined efforts to significantly improve water supply in the eastern parish. But at a community meeting held in Boston, the NWC cautioned that the improvements are not in response to the protest. Krista Campbell explains.
A massive protest born out of frustration with the lack of piped water in Portland last Monday. The protest itself frustrating commuters' efforts to go about their business. The residents had not received any piped water for 3 weeks when they took to the streets to vent. A week later, at a community meeting in Boston, Regional Manager at the National Water Commission, NWC, Richard Williams, reacted.
3 weeks ago, we were able to supply Boston well. We went back to Zion Hill, we supplied the scheme. So this is after the demonstration. If they had waited another week, they would have seen the water in the lines.
East Portland Member of Parliament Anne-Marie Vaz stressed that the NWC must do better to adequately communicate with residents to avoid animosity and protests like what happened last week.
We cannot have a pump being removed and the residents don't understand that the pump is going to be sent to be fixed, thinking that the pump is taken out and going to put somewhere else.
As for a recurring complaint whenever residents protest over the absence of potable water,
a lot of people who block the road. Some people call me and ask them, tell them to give me them bill and them contact number. Give me a account number and contact number because they not get no water. They can't give me nothing because they not no account for that cheap water.
But with bill in hand, an elderly resident insisted that is not the case for everyone.
This bill, I just get it Friday gone, that they said come and give me. I said I owe $40,245 If they carry me to court, I'm going to court in the name of Jesus.
Now, while the NWC works to increase trucked water across Portland, the residents were assured they would receive a timely schedule of water distribution with license plates of the trucks working with the NWC. Residents have also been advised they should not be paying for trucked water, but should only sign when they receive the commodity. Meanwhile, Minister with responsibility for water, Matthew Samuda, said aside from the $2.2 billion being spent to put in new pipeline on the highway construction project from Port Antonio to Boston, the government is spending millions more to replace out-of-service pumps and even more to dig for new wells.
We have found a source in Ferry Hill that can give over 300,000 gallons a day. In the drought. Because we've tested it in the drought. Now what does that mean? That means 1,000 gallons to 2,500 households coming down Ferry Hill with reliable water.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
The Bank of Jamaica has kept the policy interest rate at 7%. The rate offered to deposit-taking institutions on overnight placements with the BOJ has been the same since November last year. The BOJ's Monetary Policy Committee says it took into account the downward trend of headline inflation as well as the need to maintain tight Jamaican dollar liquidity and encourage market stability. The committee says although incoming data were generally positive, the inflation rate may temporarily rise again above the bank's inflation target range over the next 3 to 4 months. As at April, inflation stood at 5.8%, the lowest since August 2021. The committee says it's still satisfied that the decision to first increase the policy interest rate in October 2021 has been effective in slowing the inflation. It says, however, the policy stance will have to be maintained until inflation is firmly contained within the 4 to 6% target range. Further afield, Facebook's parent company Meta has been fined over $1.2 billion for allegedly mishandling people's data when transferring it between Europe and the United States. Issued by Ireland's Data Protection Commission, it is the largest fine imposed under the EU's General Data Protection Regulation privacy law. The General Data Protection Regulation sets out rules companies must follow to transfer user data outside of the EU. Meta says it will appeal the ruling, describing it as unjustified and unnecessary. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shaneberg.
Time now for the top regional and international story.
On the international scene, the United States and Papua New Guinea have signed a new bilateral defense cooperation agreement, a move that has sparked controversy in the Pacific Island nation and comes as Washington and China jostle for influence in the region. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister James Marape signed the Pact on a Maritime Security Agreement on Monday during Blinken's visit to the capital, Port Moresby. The new agreement provides a framework to help improve security cooperation, enhance the capacity of New Papua Guinea's defense force, and increase regional stability. The full agreement will be made public once politicians in both countries have an opportunity for input. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Kerry-Ann Simpson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, Jordan Fort will have your midday sports report.